Guidelines for Continuous Voter Registration CVR Exercise and PVC Distribution. Continuous Voter Registration CVR. It is an exercise meant for the registration of citizens who turned 18 years of age after the last voter registration exercise, or those who for one reason or another could not register in the previous exercises. The major activities of the CVR are fresh registration, transfer of voters, distribution of permanent voters cards PVCs, and replacement or reprint of PVCs. PVC replacement includes cases of lost, damaged, and defaced PVCs, PVCs with unclear picture, PVCs with incorrect details, that is, wrong spelling of names, gender, and age, and those whose names are on the register and have TVCs, but their PVCs have not been printed. Registration Centers. The continuous voters registration shall be carried out at the local government area offices of the Commission within the Federal Republic of Nigeria, or at such other places as may be designated by the Commission. The list of such centers for the CVR exercise shall be announced and publicized in the localities at least 7 days before the commencement of registration exercise. The Commission may use registration center, such public places as schools, halls, parks, open spaces and booths approved by the Commission, provided that these registration centers are not sited in premises of churches, mosques, or other places of religious worship, places of traditional rulers, political party offices, clubhouse, petrol filling station, or residential premises. Period of registration. The nationwide CVR exercise shall be all year round. The cycle of CVR shall be for a period as may be determined by the Commission. During this period, registration shall be done in registration centers from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. daily, excluding public holidays. Any person on the queue as at 3 p.m. during this period shall be accepted for registration. Eligibility for registration. 1. Must be a citizen of Nigeria. 2. Must have attained the age of 18 years on or before the registration day. If 18 years or above but could not register during the previous registration exercise. 4. If resident, works in or originate from a local government area, area council, or ward covered by the registration center. 5. Not subject to any legal incapacity to vote under any law, rules or regulations in force in Nigeria. 6. Must present himself or herself to the registration officer for registration and is able to provide proof of identity, age and nationality if requested. 7. Has registered before, but his or her name or photograph or fingerprints were not captured. Such a person must provide his or her temporary voter's card TVC. 8. Has PVC or TVC, but his or her name is not on the register of voters. The registration process is based on the following principles. Registration is done in person and not by proxy. Multiple registration is not allowed. Registration is a prerequisite for voting in elections. Registration is mandatory. Registration is done in public. Professional ethics for registration officials. The registration officials shall be courteous, polite, and helpful at all times, treating all persons equally and with respect. The actions and activities of registration officials should be characterized by the highest ethical standards such as integrity, impartiality, transparency, fairness, professionalism, gender sensitivity, support to vulnerable groups. Public conduct. The person presenting themselves for registration should be courteous and civil to registration officials, refraining from any untoward conduct including harassment and verbal abuse. Presentation of self for registration. A person qualified for registration shall present himself or herself to the registration officer of the Commission at a designated registration center. The registration officers may demand from the prospective registrant any information, example, if he or she has registered before, birth certificate, evidence of nationality, as may be required to enable the officer ascertain whether the applicant is qualified to register as a voter. May require the prospective registrant to surrender any previous issued voter card or slip to the registration officer. The prospective registrant shall comply with any or all of the provisions of this guideline as may be required by the registration officer. Particulars and procedure for registration. A person who is qualified for registration and who has presented his or herself for registration shall be registered in the preliminary register of voters with the following particulars: name, age, gender, occupation, address within the local government area, phone number, email address if any, and photograph. Name of state where the registration is taking place. Name of local government area or area council where the registration is taking place. Name and code number of registration unit. The registrant 10 fingerprint. The registrant national identity card, if available. Additional biodata. Birth details including country, state, and local government area. Including country, state, local government area, and place of birth. Other details like nationality and height. Registration officials. These are officers of Inec who supervise or execute the conduct of the registration exercise. They include Resident Electoral Commissioner, REC, Administrative Secretary, AS, Electoral Officer, EO, Assistant Electoral Officer, AEO, Registration Area Officer 1, RAW 1, Registration Area Officer 2, RAW 2, Registration Area Officer 3, RAW 3, Registration Area Officer 4, RAW 4, Distribution Officer, DO. Procedure for registration. The following shall be the procedure for the continuous registration of voters. This procedure shall apply subject to periodic reviews by the Commission. Any review of the procedure shall be issued in the form of new guidelines for the continuous registration of voters. There will be a team of 4 registration area officers, RAWs, and a distribution officer, DO, at the registration center. RAW 1 assists physically challenged and or non-literate persons as well as persons seeking transfer by using the polling unit guide to ensure that they are assigned to the correct delimitation polling unit, registration area and local government area. RAW 2 uses the laptop that hosts the register of voters in PDF format to check the status of prospective registrants and directs them accordingly as new registration, transfer or collection of PVC. RAW 3 issues registration application form to the prospective registrant to fill in order to confirm that he or she has not registered before. Captures intending registrant using the DDCM. Enters the data in the manual register. Issues temporary voters card TVC to the registrant. RAW 4 issues form ECTF 001 application for transfer of registered voter seeking transfer for the administrative approval by REC. Attaches photocopy of PVCs to form ECTF 001, assigns the applicant to the nearest polling unit PU to his or her new residence. Enters the applicant's details in the transfer voters list. Distribution Officer DO issue PVC to registered voters who are yet to collect such PVC. The team of registration area officers will carry out registration exercise, PVC distribution and voter transfer during the period specified by the Commission. RAUs will conduct a CVR. Where they are inadequate, RECs shall approve additional staff from Inec state offices. At the end of the specified registration period, RAUs will report to the state headquarters for data processing and back-end activities. Each registration team will have a laptop to host the register of voter for the local government area in a searchable PDF format, one DDC machine for data capture and another DDC machine for backup. Each local government area should have adequate number of DDCM for redundancy. The local government area register of voter in searchable PDF format will be used to verify the status of the prospective registrant. Registration application form will be issued to every prospective registrant who is above 18 years to fill in order to confirm that he or she has not registered before. The Registration Area Officer 3 operating the DDCM will back up registration data daily on the external drive. RAU 4 issue Form ECTF 001 and receive transfer request and reports back to the electoral officer for administrative approval by the resident electoral commissioner. DO receives the TVC from the registered voters and hand over his or her PVC at the registration center when they are ready. The EO will ensure that the LGA registration data is backed up and transmitted to the State Office for aggregation and consolidation. The EO supervises the RAUs, DO, and all equipment within the registration center, including failing of generators. VR department will undertake periodic field monitoring supervision to state offices to ensure that all data collection, aggregation and consolidation process are done correctly and to audit the statistic of registrant and utilization of materials. The register of voter in each state in PDF format shall be kept separate from the provisional registration data pending the completion of claims and objections and final integration into database. However, updated register of voter in PDF format shall be stored in a laptop to check the registration status of a member of the public. Prohibition of multiple registration. No person shall register in more than one registration center or register more than once in any registration center. Any person who registers in more than one registration center or register more than once in any registration center commits an offense and is liable to prosecution. Display a preliminary register of voters (PRV). The preliminary register of voters (PRV) shall be displayed at each registration center. The RAUs will print the list of registered voter at periodic intervals, preferably quarterly, for display at the registration center, clearly marked Preliminary Register of Voters. Preliminary Register of Voters shall be available electronically on a dedicated laptop for any member of the public to verify his or her registration status. The display of PRV shall be carried out in a manner that ensures easy and unimpeded inspection of the register by members of the public. Members of the public shall be allowed to inspect the register free of charge. Any person caught tampering with the displayed PRV shall be arrested and prosecuted. At the end of the display period, the Commission shall effect all necessary corrections and proceed to the final register of voter. Claims and objections. Any person who is qualified for registration as a voter may, if his or her name is omitted or is incorrectly stated in a register, claim in writing in Form EC2 to have his or her name inserted or to have any such entry, correction, or any other omission inserted. Any person may be noticed in writing in Form EC3, object to the inclusion of any name appearing in the preliminary register on the ground that the person A. is not a Nigerian, B. has not attained the age of 18 years, C. is not ordinary resident or an indigene of that area, D. is dead, E. is legally incapacitated to vote. Revision officers, rebels, will accept claims and objections from members of the public and forward them to the EOs of the local government area, who will coordinate the hearing of claims and objections. The Registration Area Officers 1, RAW 1, and Registration Area Officers 2, RAW 2, will become the Revision Officer, Rebel, and the Assistant Revision Officer, a Rebel respectively, for display and hearing of claims and objections before processing and printing of PVCs. The duties of the Rebel and a Rebel are: display the Preliminary Register of Voter (PRV), hear and determine claims and objections to any entry in or omission from the PRV in each center during the display period, submit the report of display and hearing of claims and objections to EO. Note: revision officers are the same people who serve as registration officers during the registration period, but their roles change during claims and objections. RAW 1 will become the Rebel, while RAW 2 will become a Rebel. Distribution of Permanent Voters Card (PVCs). The distribution officer shall issue permanent voters card (PVC) to a registered voter who has not collected his or her PVC. The officer shall also handle issues of lost, damaged, or unprinted PVCs and carry out authentication tests on PVCs with Smart Card Reader (SCR). A person is eligible to collect PVC if he or she A. registered before, B. is in the displayed register of voter, C. has a temporary voter card (TVC), D. has lost his or her TVC but his or her identity can be confirmed by an acceptable means, is physically present at the collection center. There shall be no collection of PVC by proxy. The PVC distribution will take place at Inec Local Government Area Office between the hours of 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. The electoral officer shall ensure that PVCs are arranged according to their RAs, polling units, and in alphabetical order. Each distribution center shall be managed by Distribution Officer DO. DOs shall be competent in handling questions concerning PVCs. Distribution Officer DO takes custody of the PVCs, checks and confirms that the prospective voter is in the distribution register of voters. If the name of the prospective voter is found on the distribution register of voters, he or she shall search through the PVCs for his or her PVC. Request prospective registrant to thumbprint and sign the PVC collection section of the distribution register of voters. Retrieves the TVC from the prospective voter and hands over to prospective voter his or her PVC. Where the prospective voter does not have a TVC, the prospective voter is made to sign an attestation form and affix his or her passport photograph. If the prospective voter is suspected to be underage, his or her PVC shall be retained at the local government area office until proven otherwise. Make sure that the retrieved TVCs are properly stored and secure in a bag provided. Make sure that the number of PVCs signed for equals the number of PVCs he or she has handed over to prospective voters at the end of each day. Completes the card issuance daily report and makes sure that the report tallies. Cross-check PVC with SCR to ensure quality. Issue incident forms for complaints about omitted name, lost PVC, damaged, defaced PVC, etc. Issuance of duplicate voter slip or card. A person whose voter slip or card is lost, torn, or defaced shall not later than 45 days to the polls apply to the Commission for issuance of a duplicate voter's slip or card. An application in sub-paragraph 1 of this paragraph shall be accompanied by a. Proof of identity, b. Processing fee as may be determined by the Commission. An applicant who satisfies the provision of the paragraph and whose name appear in the register of voter shall be issued with a duplicate copy of voter slip or card clearly marked duplicate. Transfer of registered voters. At any time during continuous registration of voters, an applicant may apply through the EO to the Resident Electoral Commissioner in the state where he or she is currently resident to be transferred to a new constituency, provided this is done not later than 45 days before the next election. The application shall be made on Form ECTF 001 and received by the RAW 1 during registration. Procedure for transfer. The person who intends to transfer his or her registration will apply through the electoral officer of the local government area where he or she is currently residing to the Resident Electoral Commissioner (REC) of the state. Note: the application should contain the current address and the telephone number of the applicant, as this will assist in assigning him or her to the polling unit PU nearest to the new address. Step 1. The applicant will fill Form ECTF 001, Application for Transfer of Registered Voter. Step 2. The applicant will attach a photocopy of his or her Permanent Voter's Card (PVC) to the application. Note: the applicant must apply in good time to the Resident Electoral Commissioner, as no transfer can be entertained or granted less than 45 days to the election. Step 3. The electoral officer EO of the applicant's local government area, on receiving the application, shall forward the application to Resident Electoral Commissioner (REC) for approval. Step 4. If the Resident Electoral Commissioner is satisfied that the applicant is currently resident in the area, he or she shall approve the application and direct that the applicant's details be transferred to his or her new location. Note: the Commissioner may demand evidence such as utility bills for confirmation. Step 5. The HOD-ICT, on receiving the approved application, shall 1. Effect the transfer on the server. 2. Print temporary voter card (TVC) for the applicant. 3. Forward detailed report of transferred voters to the headquarters. 4. Forward printed PVC to Electoral Officer EO for distribution. Note: the applicant's registration and particulars will be deleted from the register of voters in the previous location. An applicant is advised to visit the Inec local government area or area council offices to find out if his or her transfer has been effected and to pick up his or her PVC in person, as collection by proxy is not allowed. Rejection of application for registration. Where the registration area officer is not satisfied that a person who presents himself or herself for registration is qualified, the registration area officer shall issue to that person a notice of rejection in Form ECTF 02 stating the reason for rejection. The registration area officer shall maintain a record showing the names and other particulars of every person whose registration has been rejected by him or her pursuant to paragraph 1 above. Appeal against rejection. Any person who is aggrieved by a rejection or any decision of the registration area officer may appeal to the electoral officer in the local government area or area council of registration at such time and such manner as may, by notice, be prescribed by the Commission. The Commission shall by notice inform the public the time and manner in which appeal against rejection may be made. The electoral officer shall determine whether or not the appeal has merit, and if the appeal has merit, a voter's slip or card shall be issued to the appellant, and his or her name shall be entered in the register of voters. A record shall be kept of all appeals that have been rejected by the electoral officers, and the results of the determination of all appeals shall be pasted at the local government area or area council of the commission. Party agent. A political party may, by notice in writing signed by the national party chairman or secretary and addressed to the electoral officer of the local government area or area council, appoint not more than 2 agents to each registration center. The notice shall set out the name and address of the agent and be given to the electoral officer before the date fixed for the registration. A party agent shall not interfere with the registration exercise. Observers and journalists. Observers and journalists duly accredited by the Commission may be permitted into the registration center by the registration officer to observe the registration exercise. All accredited observers and journalists shall subscribe to the Code of Conduct for accredited observers and journalists and observed all rules and regulations issued by the Commission. Power of registration/electoral officers. The registration officer or electoral officer shall be at liberty to order any party agent, observer, journalist, or any other person interfering with registration process or whose behavior is inimical to the smooth running of the exercise to leave the registration center, and the person so ordered shall comply forthwith. A political party or an accredited observer or media organization may be allowed to replace its representative so ordered to leave registration center. Security officials. Police officers or other security officials shall be permitted to enter or remain in the registration center by the registration officer and shall be subject to the direction of the registration officer or electoral officer at the registration center. Power of the Commission to appoint officers and assign duties or responsibility. The Commission may appoint officers and assign to such officers any function or duty in relation to the registration of voters. All officers appointed by the Commission for the purpose of registration of voters shall not, in the performance of their functions or duty, be subject to the direction or control of any other person or authority other than the Commission. Inec, making your vote count, consolidating Nigeria democracy.